Hey y'all, I am back in Jackson, Tennessee, October 28th, 2023, and I am going to go through the Carnegie Music of Legends, Tennessee Music of Legends. Going to have Carl Perkins, Eddie Arnold, Sonny Boy Williamson, Tina Turner, bunch of different music legends from here in Tennessee. So we're going to go in, walk around, see what we can find. So here we go. Just a little bit of information of Gil Scott, the godfather of rap. This is outside of the Carnegie Museum. So across from the museum is this mural of Scott Heron, the godfather of rap. Pretty cool. Now we're going to go in, take a look around in the museum, learn about some Tennessee music legends. So as soon as you walk in, to the left, I'm going to Jackson. The lyrics to the song. And that's Johnny Cash and June Carter there.
Excuse me.
Hidden in the back rooms and in the alleys behind black-owned businesses along Shannon Street in Jackson, a distinctive urban blues sound found its first audience. The sound is the blues harmonica of John Lee Curtis Sonny Boy Williams. He started out as country blues, but he wrote songs with a rhythm that moved towards something else. Although the harmonica was a fragile $2 construct of tin and reed, played in the hands of Sonny Boy, it would become a solo instrument of amazing virtuosity, and his sound would influence a pantheon of bluesmen and rockers for generations to come. Billy Boy Arnold, an internationally acclaimed bluesman, learned to play the harmonica as a 12-year-old from Sonny Boy.
Put your tongue between 1 and 2 and draw in. And then after you play around with it a while, this is how a good morning schoolgirl sounds. There was a kid was riding a bicycle around Jackson. And they say, well, when he's around 15, and he played the harmonica, and they say, let's go down there and get that boy down in Jackson, Tennessee, and play the harmonica. With Sleepy John Estes and some of the older guys, they play around with them, And they brought him to Chicago. He was 20 years old when they brought him to Chicago and recorded Good Morning Schoolgirl, and the rest is history. I never would have probably wanted to play the harmonica if I hadn't heard Sonny Boy, because I was really impressed with his singing. I liked the way he sang and his dynamic harmonica player.
While Sonny Boy and other early Jackson area black bluesmen, like Sleepy John Estes, son of a sharecropper who built his first guitars from cigar boxes, and Yank Rachel, who traded a pig for his first mandolin, and ham-bone Willie Newborn, while they were creating a new sound in the urban hotspots, a group of white musicians was doing the same in rural roadhouses on the outskirts of town. Here too, music that had sounded country was evolving into something much, much bigger.
We called them beer joints then, but they would be
by a cotton patch or out in the country. And they say, back then they said a lot of people would pick cotton, would just pick until the band started, and then they'd leave their cotton in the sack outside and then come on into the beer door.
These were lean years in the Deep South. There was no work, and what work there was rarely paid enough to keep body and soul together. For the young men, there was little hope for anything better than doing nothing, or working in the cotton fields for 50 cents a day.
My grandmother and granddaddy, along with my uncles and my dad, were sharecroppers. Basically, they worked the farm, the land for the landowner, and then they got part of the crop as payment. That's the way that it worked back in those days. And my dad and his family were about the only white sharecroppers in this field, and so the folks there were the black folks. And during the heat of the day, picking cotton, the back-breaking chore of picking the cotton, the black people would start humming and singing and start singing those spirituals. And he said, my dad said it just sent chill bumps down his back when they start singing. And so that whole field, they'd all start joining in and singing all of those old gospel black hymns and all.
Carl also heard a sharecropper with a beat-up guitar. He met the old black man named John Westbrook. The old man taught Carl to play the guitar, and the young man's life changed forever.
My dad said, I loved the way he would take his finger and said he'd hit a string and just and have that vibrato blues thing going. Said he couldn't play that well, but it was just the soul of the way he played and the sounds that was coming out that just intrigued me. And said, I asked him to show me how you do that. And eventually my granddad went to Uncle John and said, how much will you take for that guitar? And he gave him $2 and a chicken. And that was Carl Perkins' first guitar. And I think my dad just took that music that he heard on the Grand Ole Opry, the black music that he heard in the fields every day, and then the blues licks that he got from Uncle John watching him play the guitar, and that just all came together, formed the nucleus of the musical ability of Carl Perkins. That's where it all started.
So it was here in Jackson that the sound, now known as rock, would first be heard.
Well, it's one for the money.
While Sonny Boy Williamson left Jackson for Chicago on the GM&O, Carl Perkins journeyed out from Jackson on the invisible wings of an emerging new technology. Radio. Late at night, on his own worn-out battery-powered radio, he heard music out of Memphis, a place where the rules of the game were being rewritten with every new note sung and played. Here was blues brought from the Delta to Memphis, where W.C. Handy, Booker White, Willie Mae Glover, B.B. King, Bobby Blue Bland, and Muddy Waters gravitated to Beale Street. Here was jazz from New Orleans, swing and gospel and country, and everything else that was new and old and borrowed. A blending of styles never heard before. The more he listened to the Memphis stations, the more he knew this was where he was destined to record. Carl would bring his own unique sound to Memphis, but first he would add one more ingredient to his rockabilly stew.
One night, at the Hilltop Inn, I was still there when they was loading up to leave, and Carl said, we got an appointment with Sam Phillips of Sun Records Thursday to borrow some drums and go with us. Man, what? I can't play drums. What would I do with the drum? And he said, you keep time on that bass like that and changes the whole feel of the music. And he said, you could play drums.
Holland was the only one in the Perkins band who had a real job, and thus a car. and the band climbed into his Cadillac and they headed for Memphis, where they had a recording session at Sun Records, where a young newcomer named Elvis Presley was recording.
Back then, it was so simple to get into the music business. It's like all you had to do was go to Sun Studio. It took Sam Phillips 3 minutes to record a song. It took him 3 minutes to press the record. It took him about 3 minutes to run it to Dewey Phillips' Red Hot and Blue radio show. In 9 minutes, you was a star. You could play anywhere you wanted to in a 100-mile radius of Memphis and draw a crowd.
And so the stage was set for the amazing evolution of rock and roll. From the early blues of Jackson's Sonny Boy Williamson and the rockabilly of Carl Perkins to a vast legion of artists who have made rock a cultural phenomenon and the most popular genre of music in the world. Among those from West Tennessee firmly established in the Hall of Fame are Big Maybelle of Jackson and the daughter of a sharecropper from Nutbush, Tennessee, Tina Turner, who had become widely acknowledged as the queen of rock and roll, but also the man who introduced country music to a wide, popular audience for the first time, Eddie Arnold. Eddie grew up in Pinson and made country music cool to the entire world. And Jackson born Wing Martindale, a world-famous television host and producer who sold 1 million records on his first recording. One of the great mysteries of life is the question of where music comes from. The blues masters claim that inspiration for music comes from the earth, from life experience, from love and loss, hope and desperation.
I write songs. I have no earthly idea where they come from. Sometimes it's early morning, sometimes it's late at night. It's just the most beautiful thing when you have a song that finds you and wakes you up in the morning and says, here it is.
Isaac Tyler grew up in Jackson, where Sonny Boy Williamson is buried. As a young man, Isaac founded the Hard Rock Cafe. Then he founded the House of Blues. He plans to spend the rest of his life in India at the ashram of the great Hindu avatar Sai Baba. Few are more qualified to explain the beginnings of rock, its relationship with the blues, and the spiritual connection between the performer and the artist.
Our music of West Tennessee erupted and changed the entire world. We created blues, and all the history of the blues comes from our area. And we created rhythm and blues with Stax Records and all the amazing players that came out of everywhere in West Tennessee. And we created something called rock and roll, which was basically Sam Phillips' dream of taking black, spiritual, blues-oriented music and selling it to a white audience. This was a true rebel. This is the original. This is the daddy. And who did he sign? He signed Elvis Presley, Jerry Lee Lewis, the great Johnny Cash, and the rockabilly king himself, the great Carl Perkins from Jackson, Tennessee. I was blessed to start something called the House of Blues. And we did 18,000 shows in 8 or 9 cities. And I always came for the opening act because the energy between the artist and his fans was like congregational prayer, the real deal. And I would watch the energy going back and forth between the fans and the artist, the fans and the artist, and the energy of the room was sublime. Music is that international language of the spirit. It transcends borders, cultures, age groups. It's something that's very personal to all of us.
Everyone knows that Liverpool, England is where the Beatles first came together. And if you ask people in England just where was rock and roll born, they will say here, in Jackson, Tennessee. Such luminaries as Peter Townsend, Mick Jagger, Keith Richards, Robert Plant, Paul McCartney, Eric Clapton, All regard Jackson as a kind of holy place in the early landscape of rock music. Robert Plant, Charlie Musselwhite, and John Sebastian even made their way through the deep Tennessee backwoods to Sonny Boy Williamson's gravesite. Before he was killed in Chicago, Sonny Boy wrote that when he died, he wanted to be buried in Jackson, Tennessee. It is not hard to imagine how these three felt at this place after coming thousands of miles to pay homage to this black man who seemed to emerge from the earth so long ago to create something that would be at the center of their lives, and then would be buried at this lonely place. Listen. Listen as they listened. Listen to the echoes. Feel as they felt. Feel the spirit. Celebrate quietly as they celebrated. Celebrate the beginning.
Jackson, Tennessee.
As you know, Isaac Tiger started, pass me those shirts, please. Thank you. Started the Hard Rock Cafe, and you all have heard of the Hard Rock Cafe. Well, he and his business partner were over in London, working in London, and they couldn't find a decent cheeseburger. So the Hard Rock Cafe started because these two guys couldn't find a different, a good cheeseburger. Yes. And his mother owned the mall here. When they wanted to start franchising, they had to move here, open in the United States. So the first Hard Rock Cafe in the United States was here in Jackson. And his mother owned the mall, and it was in the mall next to Sears. So anyway, I have to do a commercial. The Hard Rock lets us sell these. It's like NFL. Anyway, it says first to rock, which means we were the first in the United States to rock. These are $28.50 and these are $24.50, and these are the museum shirts. Anyway, in your goodie bag, I put 4 passports and 2 passports for you all. Okay. I didn't realize before I took this job that people.
Now this section is Jonathan Singleton. I don't know much about him, but evidently he's a musician from here in Tennessee. Picture of Dolly Parton. Some blue suedes. Billy Boyd. There's some more clothes worn by Carl Perkins. Guitar strap signed by him. There's a check. Can't really see it. Sun record check made out to Carl Perkins in the amount of $1,265.32. Now this car door is the actual car door that was on the vehicle that he crashed. And while he was in the hospital, Elvis sent him a telegram. And if you look closely, Elvis Presley, spelt with an A, Bill Black, and Scotty Moore, and DJ Fontana. But Elvis, he wasn't as popular then, so misspelled his name. This is a fire pit that Carl Perkins owned. It's got the Sun Record logo on it. And the 234 represents the 234th song that was recorded at Sun Records by Sam Phillips. Denise LaSalle, and Tina Turner, there's more back there. Carl Perkins. That awning is the original awning that was at the very first Hard Rock Cafe here in the United States. It was located here in Jackson, Tennessee, and it was in a mall right beside Sears. And we'll see a picture of that here in just a minute. There's the House of Blues. The man that started the House of Blues, Isaac Tigert, also started Hard Rock Cafe. Original stage. So that's the original stage. This black guitar was Carl Perkins' very first electric guitar, and it was a cheap guitar, and he didn't want anybody to know it was cheap, so he actually painted it black. And it's not originally black, but the gold one above it is a lot more expensive. Some Raybert Anthony. And Carl Mann. Eddie Arnold. This guitar is signed by a lot of different artists. I see Charlie Daniels, Little Texas, Diamond Rio, which those are bands. Let's see here. Kix Brooks. A lot of them I just can't read. And Scotty Moore. That's a Sun record. The song is Let's Play House. It's signed by Scotty Moore. Picture of Scotty and Elvis. And that is a picture of Carl Perkins, Ringo Starr, I think she said George Harrison, and can't remember who she said that band was. This is Isaac Tigert, the man that I told you that started Hard Rock Cafe and the House of Blues. And there is a picture of the first Hard Rock Cafe here in the United States. It was here in Jackson, Tennessee. There's another picture of it. That awning is right there. Another guitar signed by many, many artists. Picture of Merle Haggard. Elvis Presley and the big red guitar. And here is a section of Minnie Pearl, Hitman County's own.